I'm not live. Okay, now I'm live. I was doing that really awesome Bill O'Reilly joke from 2009 that everybody's just wanting to hear. Staying current, folks. That's what being on YouTube is all about. Actually, real quick, I'm gonna go ahead and do something real quick. Hold on. I have bad adult attention deficit disorder, and I always scratch my head too much as like a nervous fucking tick. And I don't want to do that during the stream. What did I do with my fucking hat? God damn it. God damn it. Never mind. Never mind that shit. Okay. Hi, folks. Coming to you live. Your host, Jack Horner. And I wasn't actually going to do a stream tonight. But then I saw a video that, as a history buff myself, I just had to watch it and share it with you guys because it's really important. It's about one of my favorite periods in history, the Civil War. And it turns out none other than Mr. Dave Rubin and his guest have solved what caused the Civil War. So I'm going to make a few guesses as to what caused the Civil War, according to Dave Rubin. I think it was probably the North not allowing the South to prosper economically and grow cotton, and it was the North's fault for that reason. I think that Antifa, I think it was probably Antifa. If I had to guess, I think Antifa caused the Civil War. All right, so first of all, let's go to the retard report right here. Okay, wait. Oh, man, there's so many goodies. Well, you know what? Since you guys have been waiting long enough, I want to find out how the media is covering up the riots.
That the left has been hoping for, that we were told, was good.
By the way, I think that I have it set up right to capture the audio on the video. I apologize if I don't. I'm going to go ahead and full screen this bitch. I said bitch because I'm a rebel and cool. Okay, guys. Hold on, let me do captions. The captions, like the misspelled captions, actually make it smarter. My opinion.
Going to happen after the election. It never happened. And these guys got out of control. It is also true that, as we heard with the Black Lives Matter protests, we heard for the riots, the race riots that did 100,000 times more damage than happened as a physical matter and as a life matter than happened on January 6th. The rolling riots that we saw over the summer, through the fall, that are now being completely rewritten out of history by the mainstream media, not that they acknowledge them.
Okay, so I want to unpack that one thing. So it's being rewritten out of history by the mainstream media. Is it the media that dictates history? And if that's the case, then how much of rewriting of the history has the media done in terms of not only brutality, police brutality against African Americans and black people of other nations, but brutality against any so-called criminal? How much coverage is the media given to no-knock raids? How much coverage is media given to private prisons? How much coverage is media given to the war on drugs and the devastating impact that that's had on the economy? For some reason, this just makes me think of Roger Stone. And I think Roger Stone, he was an aide of Trump's, and to a lot of people, he's not a good man. And that's not for me to say. I don't know a whole shit ton about him. He seems like a fun guy. But Roger Stone, who has a tattoo of Nixon, even he said, and he's Nixon's bitch. Like, he'd say Nixon's his favorite president. He's a Nixon apologist. But even he said that Nixon's greatest misstep was the war on drugs. And do you think that this lady's going to mention the war on drugs? Do you think that Dave's going to mention the war on drugs or private prisons? What about just overall injustice in the law system towards poor people? What about that? Is Dave going to mention that shit? Let's find out.
At the time, but now they are being completely erased. What he said does depend on what your view is of the underlying claim of rigging. You can't get around that. if you think the rigging idea was preposterous, as I do, then, for him to go and say, take back the Capitol, sounds possibly too provocative. But if it's right, if he really was the rightful winner, and the election was stolen from him, then his rhetoric looks simply factual.
I want to stop you there.
Okay, I don't know what Trump said, but based on that raw quote right there, based on that raw quote, what she said, his rhetoric of taking back the Capitol is not factual. Even if the election was stolen, you go through other means to prove that. You don't storm the fucking Capitol. What is this dumb bitch talking about? All right, we're going to move on to the Civil War, guys. Wow, I love these fucking freeze frames right here. I think it's going to be my thumbnail. Hold on. I'm going to make that my thumbnail for the video. Right there. I might even make it my profile pic on Grindr. Because I am a Christian. I am very closeted when it comes to being a homosexual. I am not the kind of guy that, is in a relationship with other men. I just like to get some dick from time to time. And if I have this bad boy right here on my profile pic, hold on, just got to do this real quick. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Anyway, part 2. But the media refuses to admit. Okay, what's the media, by the way? They always say, like, the media. It's like, they keep talking about how they're ignored by the mainstream media, but the mainstream media isn't mainstream anymore. It's all online. Like the Rubin report even stomping CNN and Fox News and all that other shit on all the other mainstream news networks on YouTube, on the internet media. So, like, what influence does the mainstream media even have anymore? Nobody. Yeah. And it's like, who the fuck is this creating black privilege and teaching victimhood? Like, I don't even... No, I'm done with that cunt. You suppose she's like a grifter like Rubin, who, Rubin uses being a gay man as his excuse to be ignorant. And I bet that let's see. I bet she's married to a big black dude. I bet she's married to a big black guy that smokes blunts and wears a do-rag and fucking has grills in his teeth. And I bet that guy has a huge penis that he just rails her with every night. She gets on camera and she says all this racist bullshit, and then she goes home and gets punished by her big black husband. Probably a man with a European name like John or Stephen with a la or duh in front of it. I bet it was the worst day of my life. You know what? Fuck Steven Crowder for having that cocksucker on his fucking show. You know what? Like, let's not watch a Steven Crowder video. I just want to watch it without the words. Because Steven Crowder, he always makes a big deal about America first. He always makes a big deal about how cultural relativism is poison. And Alex Jones has accused his country of committing terrible atrocities. In my mind, you can't be an Alex Jones fan and be pro-America. So, fuck that hypocrite. Let's go back to the retard report. Click on that. Hold on. Uploads. Where did I see this shit? The Wolf of Wall Street. What really caused the Civil War? Oh, it's a two-parter. It's a two-parter, guys.
Asking what caused the Civil War is the wrong question. And even some of your neo-abolitionist historians like Ken Stamp and Eric Foner have pointed out that they're really two separate questions. Why does the South secede, and why does the North refuse to let the South go?
So what was the beginning of his presidency like?
The beginning of his presidency people are unaware of. In South Carolina's Ordinance points of secession, and they're the first state. They're the most fire. He has agreed to enforce the Fugitive Slave Act as president. So this is the only anti-slavery issue, right. and he decides to hang on to it. Some want a more aggressive policy in terms of justifying secession. Is not Lincoln's election, but Northern failure to comply with the fugitive slave clause of the Constitution. Now, partially that's a rhetorical ploy because
right.
it allows them to argue that the Northerners had violated the constitutional contract first, but it also reflects a deep concern about fugitive slaves, and one of the points that I make in my book is that I think most historians have underestimated the economic significance of the fugitive slave issue in terms of bringing on secession. And maybe we can get to that.
I do want to get to that.
So you have
the economic significance. You know, and like there's another reason that pisses me off besides the obvious surface level one. The surface level reason is that the South's economy was dependent on cotton, and cotton was obviously picked, grown, mended, whatever proper terms you want to use, farmed, if that's the right term, all by slaves. You know, and if you want to say, like, just like in terms of the context of the people living in that time, like not every Southern person was a bad person, you know, and maybe, like, I don't even want to give them that credit, you know, because it's like, okay, I kind of want to say this in terms of like today, because I do think that this applies today. Just because, you know, like, where are our iPhones made? Like, how much of our clothes, our technology, the thing I'm talking to you on right now, how much of that shit's made in sweatshops, you know, from across the world? How much does slavery still work as a very important and fundamental part of our economy? You know, like, people don't like to think about that. Like, I mean, I always find it so funny, like, when a shirt says, like, the proceeds to this go to, gay Republicans who have been ousted by their families and now have to live on the street and shoot heroin and suck dick, but they do it as patriotic, classical liberals. You know, like whenever, like, a t-shirt or something says, like, this, the proceeds of this shit's going to some charity, when it was most likely made in Bangladesh by a 13-year-old girl whose fucking hands are just aching from all the fucking sewing and shit that she has to do. You know, and if you want more of a credible allegation in this for this issue or in this respect, check out Apple. You know how much Apple just outsources to slave labor, you know, in China. And that's honestly, like, in terms of Trump, and I'm not saying I supported how he went about that, because I think that he was on Twitter, he really fucked up this whole trade war by tweeting shit that got other countries nervous. You know, I'm not saying he played it right, but the idea of protectionism and the idea that, you know, cheaper goods isn't a fair price to pay for slave labor and human labor, and allowing that and putting those jobs back in America, I totally support that. And for what it's worth, I don't think Biden's going to continue that. You know, like, that's something that Clinton started with NAFTA, you know, and since then, you know, the Democrats have been real corporatist. So, anyway.
The Deep South seceding, and they're seizing all of the U.S. military bases.
Yeah, he made an important distinction there between the South and the Deep South. You know, like, the Deep South is where all the bad shit happened. But then there's the regular South, where, you know, they did beat the slaves occasionally, but they let the slaves drink water, and they called them by their first name, and let the slaves dance and sing and shit. Yeah, fucking fuck you.
For a few that are holding out, and the prominent one that's holding out is Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor.
I just want to say I'm holding out for Dave Rubin. Dave, buddy, I'm not gay, but, you know, you're a Republican, you're a Christian, you're pro-life, all things that you believe in and have believed in for a long time. And if you ever wanted me to suck your cock because you're a real patriotic classical American, I will do that for you.
James Buchanan has to deal with this. He's the lame duck president. He tries to reinforce Sumter, and South Carolina fires on the ship, and so, but the garrison is still there when Lincoln becomes president. So that's the big issue that's dominating Lincoln's presidency, is what do you do about Fort Sumter? And Lincoln, he's getting all kinds of advice. Some people want him to try to back down on the Republican position about slavery in the territories, but he absolutely refuses to do so. I mean, he has agreed to enforce the Fugitive Slave Act as president. So this is the only anti-slavery issue, and he decides to hang on to it. Some want a more aggressive policy, some want a more passive policy. Basically, Lincoln essentially follows Buchanan's policy, although Buchanan gets a lot of criticism.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that.
And what happens is...
Well, Buchanan's policy being what?
Being trying to reinforce the fort, but not using military force to hold on to the fort.
Gotcha.
All right. So Lincoln sends reinforcements and supplies to the fort, telling South Carolina that he's doing so. By this time, the Confederacy is formed. The Confederacy fires on Fort Sumter, right? And that's the 9/11 of the Civil War. It polarizes both sides.
Did 3,000 people die at Fort Sumter? Let's check that out. I want to check those stats. Hold on. No, I'm not going to do that. I don't give a fuck. But saying something is the 9/11 of something is an insult to 9/11. Attacking a military base is nothing like attacking a civilian building. That guy's a dumb shit.
Polarizes Northerners, because up until this time, there are a lot of Northerners who say, well, we should let the South go in peace. Many of them think, well, if we let them go in peace, they'll come back.
The 9/11 of the Civil War was allowing slavery to exist. That was the 9/11. That was the event that started it all. That was the founding fathers letting us down, letting their country down by saying not everybody is equal.
And at the time of Lincoln's inauguration, there's still more slave states in the Union than out of the Union. But Lincoln responds to the firing on Fort Sumter by calling out troops. And immediately, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas all joined the Confederacy. So it's the Great Divide. With a stroke of the pen, he's doubled the size and the material resources of the Confederacy.
Yeah. What do we know about his thought process at the time?
Well,
was he really ready for the fallout that was going to happen?
Yes and no.
And then the escalation, obviously, that led to the war.
Yes and no. Let me back property rights. And he was also in favor of Northern secession from the Union, because he saw the
I gotta get more on this guy.
Immediate emancipation, full political rights for all African Americans. He was also a pacifist, an anarchist, a classical liberal in favor of free trade. Yes and no.
And then the escalation, obviously, that led to the war.
Yes and no. Let me back up a little and explain why he had to do this, all right? Why it was politically necessary to do this. Many of your abolitionists, particularly William Lloyd Garrison, who's one of my heroes, who has advocated immediate emancipation, full political rights for all African Americans. He was also a pacifist, an anarchist, a classical liberal in favor of free trade, free labor.
I gotta get more on this guy.
His opposition to slavery, a lot of the radical abolitionists framed it as man-stealing. In terms of property rights. And he was also in favor of Northern secession from the Union, because he saw the Constitution as a pro-slavery document. He denounced the Constitution publicly burned a copy, and common denominator in the
I like this guy.
what your abolitionists.
Oh, I like William Lord Garrison. I like William Lord Garrison. I don't like this fucking boring old fart.
And one of the reasons they were so unpopular is because they were saying you can't have anti-slavery in union. And people are committed to the union, right? So they're not happy about the abolition.
Yeah.
The Republican Party, by reducing the anti-slavery issue to its lowest common denominator in the territories, is telling the public you can have anti-slavery in union. All right, well, once the union's threatened, the Republican Party is going to have to suppress secession or face political oblivion. And in fact, even if Stephen Douglas had been elected president, he's an old hardline Jacksonian. He had been elected president and the South had still seceded. Now that's not very likely, but if he had been elected president and the South had seceded, he probably would have moved military force against the South even faster than Lincoln.
It's so interesting. New president at war. Who is he getting advice from? Where, did he really understand how to?
Okay, well,
to do this?
the other part of the answer to your question is that Lincoln and many of the Republicans and many Northerners in general underestimated the enthusiasm for secession on the part of Southerners. They initially believed, that it was a Southern elite of slaveholders, almost a conspiracy that had brought about.
All right, I'm tired. I'm going to end this, guys. That guy just drained all the energy out of me. How long have I been doing this for? All right. Thank you for watching. I love you.